So here's my thing. Is the mentality of the UFC's biggest villain, Colby Chaos Covington,
Greetings, nerds and virgins,
being destroyed or empowered by the hate he receives? It's an interesting topic with the recent announcement of UFC 296, which will headline Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington. Winner takes home welterweight gold. Colby Covington's last fight was about 584 days ago, per the resources that I found, and it was March 5th, 2022 against a pretty washed up Masvidal, which he won by unanimous decision. Dragged Masvidal around the entire time and came to that unanimous decision. Great fight, but he hasn't fought since then. And what I've been seeing ever since that fight ended, and especially since Leon has claimed the belt, is people crapping on Colby Covington for his inactivity. All the welterweights are joining in and using Colby Covington as their punching bag. Colby's rise to fame started when he went to Brazil for the first time, and he claims that he was about to be cut. He was on his last fight, or he thought he was going to be cut from the UFC even though he was winning. So he went to Brazil and he just trashed on the country. Called the place a dump.
Brazil, you're a dump! All you filthy animals suck!
UFC is filled with Brazilian fighters. So naturally, after trashing their home country, they were reasonably upset. The public outrage started at that moment. A lot of people took sides and took to disliking a chaos master, Colby Covington. In recent times, people's dislike of Colby now extends to the fact that they don't even like how he plays that bad character, that villain in the UFC. A lot of people find it cringe, forced. They just feel like he's a good guy underneath and he's just exuding it out in all his power, but it comes out wrong. And they don't even like that. So, are people really tuning in to watch him win? Are they tuning in to watch him lose? Or are they not tuning in at all? In recent interviews, I've seen Colby talk about being a draw for the UFC. So I went ahead and looked at some of his main events. Colby has headlined 5 main events in the UFC, although not all of those have been a UFC pay-per-view. Some of them have been fight nights, like his fight with Tyron Woodley. Out of those 5 main events that he has headlined, Colby's best-selling pay-per-view was his rematch with Usman, which reached about 700,000 pay-per-views. That totals out to be roughly the 35th highest grossing pay-per-view UFC event, which isn't bad considering we're at UFC 296 is when he'll fight next. So being top 35 isn't bad, but it's definitely not the greatest. I was looking and Conor McGregor has about 9 out of 10 of the highest pay-per-view headlines. He was the main event for 9 out of 10 of them. And those fights were reaching into the millions of pay-per-view. Even Colby's main nemesis, Kamaru Usman, who has defeated him twice in the cage, had a higher grossing pay-per-view in his rematch, Usman Masvidal number 2. That event outsold Colby's best-selling pay-per-view event by about 600,000 pay-per-view units. That's almost double. So is there any truth to this claim? I personally believe there is, but it's hard to actually find the numbers to back it up. I like watching Colby. He's one of the more interesting fighters for me to keep an eye on because so many people dislike him. And there's something with me that makes me just love the people that everybody hates. I like rooting for underdogs and I like going against the flow. I don't know why. But I love to see people wanting him to lose so badly and then him winning. Oh, that makes me go crazy. Love to see it. Love to see it. In order to try and answer the question of how the hate affects Colby's mentality in the fights, I was watching some interviews that are floating around in the YouTube space. In my personal opinion, the biggest impact that the hate or the negative comments might have on a fighter would be affecting their confidence, making them unsure of themselves or just making them feel like crap because they feel like the whole world is against them. Is that true for Colby Chaos Covington? Well, in those interviews, it doesn't seem so. This man is chock full of confidence. Chock full of confidence. Dare I say, Blind confidence. I don't know where he's getting this confidence from. I love to see it. But I don't know where he's pulling the confidence from because his victories aren't the greatest. They aren't the greatest. I'll say it. Colby has seen the last round in every single one of his fights since 2016. There's a lot of them. And only 4 of those were finished. Every other one went to decision. 1 out of those 4 fights, Colby was finished, and that was by Kamaru Usman in round 5 of their first meeting. And then he finished the other 3 opponents in the last round. This man, he goes to the end. He fights the full fight. Now, as I'm speaking that out, that kind of makes me be like, well, that gives him confidence because he's been so much in the octagon that he probably feels so well-rounded. While fighting to the end of every fight probably is giving Colby his confidence now, it might be having the opposite effect because he doesn't have really any highlight knockouts like a lot of other fighters have. Like his future upcoming opponent, Leon Edwards, his highlight knockout head kick of Kamaru Usman.
That is not the cloth from which he is cut. I mean, that is a dejected...
That gives confidence. Knocking someone clean out like that gives confidence. Having it be a war every single time you step into the octagon, I feel like if it was me, that might impact me, but as long as I'm winning, maybe it wouldn't then. Based on Colby's attitude in these interviews, I honestly don't think the hate's really getting to him. I think he's the kind of person that takes that and is like, I can't wait to prove people wrong. I think he gets empowered by the hate and the dislike because he's asking for it. He's doing all this purposefully, and it's a character, most likely. This is an attribute to his mentality that I believe keeps him centered more than other UFC fighters. We saw the difference in confidence between Kamaru Usman, one of the top 3 welterweight GOATs, in his rematch with Leon Edwards. It was different. It was a different Kamaru. That head kick truly changed the way that Kamaru fought in the second. And it was noticeable. And I don't think Colby has that. He's lost twice to Kamaru, but even the first time he lost a pretty wicked, his jaw broke, but he still came back in the second fight and did even better than the first fight. I honestly think that Colby has an unlimited supply of confidence. He asks for hate, he gets it, and he uses that as fuel because he likes to prove people wrong. That's my opinion on that. And honestly, I'm rooting for him to become the welterweight champion of the world. I'm rooting for it. I'm gonna be able to sleep if he doesn't, but I think it'd be funny. I like proving people wrong, and I think he's a perfect person to be doing that. Thanks for listening, everyone. Feel free to comment your thing about Colby's mentality down below, and I'll talk to you next time.